Ready? Hey. One more time. There it is. Wow. Shout out to my man Lou Mel for that beat on the intro. You feel me? He said, that drop is crazy, right? Boom. What's happening, everybody? Welcome. This is the Entrepreneur Social Podcast. This happened to be episode number 1. This is the introduction of the show. I want to say welcome. This is the show that's going to inspire you to push forward and stop making those excuses. If you're excited for that, go ahead, hit the like button one time. But I'll start with myself. My name is Erastus Snorway, man. You can find me at GarmentCreations. GarmentCreations. Whew. I got my coffee this morning. Coffee or tea? Let me know. What are you? Are you a coffee person or you are a tea person? What is your drink of choice? And how do you take it? Do you take your coffee black? Do you take your coffee with cream and sugar? Just let me know, how do you take your coffee? And I want to introduce the show to you with just a solo episode, right? Just me and I, and share the vision around this. So the Entrepreneur Social Podcast was a vision that I got maybe about 2 years ago now. All right, 2 years ago. And I believe at this time I was on a live. It was a regular live on Facebook, and I brought it up in the live, and I said something about doing a podcast to interview entrepreneurs, creatives, just people that are doing it but don't have a platform to share their story. And I couldn't think of a name at that time. So in the comments, somebody had mentioned, bro, we should call it the Entrepreneur Social Podcast. I seen that comment come up, and everybody in the comments was like, yo, that's dope. That's a good name. Immediately, knowing me, I went ahead and I took that name and started everything about it. I went ahead and I started the official branding, packaging, right? If you would talk about this in some episodes, the steps that you need to take when you get an idea, maybe it's not even a business yet, but when I get an idea and I know this is something that I'm going to do in the future or right now, there are steps that I take to make this thing possible, right? So immediately when I took that name, I went ahead and started searching on Instagram. Is anybody else using this name? Entrepreneur Social Podcast. It's a long name, so I'm looking for it everywhere. I didn't find it on Instagram. The moment I didn't find it on Instagram, I went over to Facebook, Entrepreneur Social Podcast. Nobody had it. I went over to Google. I Googled it, Entrepreneur Social Podcast. I couldn't find it. And then I went ahead to the domain, Google Domains, and I looked it up, Entrepreneur Social Podcast, and it was available. And immediately I made that decision, okay, this is the name we're going with, because the first strategy, that is the strategy all by itself. And I tell people all the time, if you're going to start a brand, you get the name, don't just go with that name right away because it comes in your mind, right? You have to go through the steps to figure out, is this name actually available for you to use? And I mean, when I say the name, the actual spelling of the name, right? When I started my printing business, GarmentCreations, which it is now, it didn't start up as that name. It started up as B&E Creative Prints. My wife's name is Benita. My name is Erastus. So for some reason, even the other day was talking about it, why we thought that was cute, right? B&E Creative. But then the thing here, we didn't even spell creative with a C. We spell creative with a K. And I have a thing around that where I tell people all the time, if you're going to spell it, make sure it's spelled the right way, or else people are not going to be able to think that's the way to spell it unless you tell them, right? So if I was to tell you, B&E Creative Prints, automatically you would put the B and the E, but when you get to creatives, you're going to fumble because immediately you're going to spell it the way your mind knows to spell it, the way you were taught to spell creatives, right? So that was the name we started at first, but then years went by and we decided to change the name to Garment Creations because that's what really made sense at that time. So we went ahead and we did all those steps that I just explained. Go ahead and make sure it's available on social, which is super important. And then we went ahead and made sure that it was also available for the domain. That means the website, right? Even if you're not planning to grow a website right away, in the beginning startup stages, when you're doing your research, you want to include the domain in that, the .com, right? So GarmentCreations.com was the domain that we went with. So that was the same thing with the Entrepreneur Social. I went through all of those steps and I secure all of the branding packages. I also went ahead and paid someone to do the logo, which I will pop up on the screen here. And you can actually go ahead and see the logo down somewhere, right? It's probably popping up. It's probably on the side somewhere. That was the logo we came up with. So I did all of this, but months went by, years went by at this time. And I started to do like 1 or 2 episodes here and there, but I just wasn't focused on doing it at that time. I was just focused on the actual business that was behind the whole entrepreneurship thing that is on my name, right? So now years no went by, we're 2 years in, and I'm just getting this urge again to start this conversation again. Right? So every time I hear that, I'm like, all right, man, we're going to do it. So my wife recently started a podcast, which is Open Hearts Podcast. You can find it at youtube.com/Renita Rain, Nita Rain, Raine, right? So I'm getting motivated. I'm motivating her. I'm getting motivated too. I was like, okay, this is a different conversation here, but I still want to move with this conversation of the Entrepreneur Social Podcast. Right. So we built this brand, Garment Creations. So I wanted to keep do the podcast on that same brand, Garment Creations Podcast. But then I want the conversation to be just so niche that people would think only garment creators can come onto the show. So, and I'm a firm believer that God doesn't make mistakes. Right. So instead of throwing that name that we came up with years ago, I believe there was a reason why that was even the vision was even brought up years ago. So now the push is coming to jump into it. Maybe it's the time that we need to now pull those things out of the packages, out of the emails, where everything is at, and start this journey of the Entrepreneur Social Podcast. So that's where everything started at. We got the packaging, we got the logo, we got everything done. I even printed some shirts. I ordered some transfers. And I still have the transfers around here. So next episode, you'll probably see me wearing a branded shirt with the Entrepreneur Social logo on there. But that's where it all started. And the vision here again for the show is to have conversations with entrepreneurs, creators, people that are either just starting this journey or they're further ahead and are willing to share their struggles. Social media already have all this stuff that looks good. I want to have conversations about the stuff that is not on the internet yet, like the struggles, the hard days, those days where you wanted to give up, right? So entrepreneurs that are in the business now, that are in this journey, that are willing to have those conversations, this is the platform for you. And I think we'll learn a lot from the pains of other entrepreneurs so that we're not making those same exact mistakes. But before we go on, we do have sponsors for the show already. I'll take a second and thank our sponsors for being a supporter of the show. Looking to start your t-shirt business and you're looking for an easy method, I want to introduce you to Heat Transfers. Heat Transfers is the easiest way for you to start your t-shirt printing business right from home. All you need is a heat press, some t-shirts, and these transfers. And the folks over there that sponsored today's video is TKOsales.com. So at TKOsales.com, you can get all of the transfers that you need. They have a variety of transfers. They are actually the home of the 15 cents transfers. You say 15 cents, what do you mean? The same method that a screen printer will use, TKO does that same thing, and they send you this piece of paper. We'll call it a carrier sheet with your design screen printed on there. So all you have to do is turn on your heat press and apply it. In a matter of 7 to 10 seconds, you will have a custom apparel that you can go ahead and start making a profit from. Again, TKOsales.com. And if you hit the link down below, you will get a discount code for 10% off on your very first order. Again, use the code GarmentCreations for 10% off on your very first order. Thank you for TKO Sales for sponsoring today's episode. If you're looking for good quality basic shirts that just feel superior, and man, like you want to jump over there to SupaSoftApparel.com. That's SUPA soft apparel.com. And if you use the code GarmentCreations, you will get 10% off on your first order. Again, SupaSoftApparel.com. All you need is a reseller's permit to get shirts on a wholesale. Reseller permit. You can get your reseller's permit, reseller's license, a wholesale license. It might be different in your state. But for me in PA, it is called the PA 100 form. Once you get that form, you're able to shop wholesale with SupaSoft Apparel. So again, shout out to SupaSoft Apparel for sponsoring this video. SupaSoftApparel.com. There's a link down below to save 10% off. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about my background in entrepreneurship on this first episode here and how I even got into the journey of apparel printing. All right, so as far as I can remember, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Maybe I didn't even know that word at that time, right? But I wanted to be a business owner. That was my thing, because growing up in Africa, I was born in Liberia. That's West Africa. My father, my daddy, he had a business, right? He used to fix refrigerators. And I remember as a young kid, I had an auntie that used to come all the time. She said, "What does your daddy do?" It was like a joke. And I said, "My dad fixed Xboxes." So in Liberia, we didn't really call it refrigerators. We called it Xbox in the accent. And so, yo, that's the Xbox. So if I really break that to you in a way you can explain, you can understand, it's the ice box. So we call it ice box, right? So my dad fixed Xbox, refrigeration. That was his thing. And I watched him, like I watched his business and all of that, how he was fixing those things. And I was just, motivated. He had his own shop, and I just wanted to be a business owner. Okay, so as I grew up, I always found myself just intrigued with just businesses, right? I also watched my mom, right, sell little stuff in the market. This is in Liberia again. She would sell like plantain chips. She would sell food. She would sell like the ground pea candy. Y'all call it peanuts here, but there's a special way they would make it with the melted sugar, take the peanuts and put it in there, and it's called ground pea candy, right? So my mom was selling all those little things in the market. I always watched, enjoy what was happening. I didn't understand much as a kid, right? So I remember I was actually sent to Job Corps, right? I was messing up in high school, got sent over to Job Corps, and the whole time I was there, y'all, I became one of the biggest entrepreneurs. I became one of the biggest entrepreneurs on that center. Again, if you're having value to this show here, go ahead and hit the like button. Let me know in the comments, what was your first business memory, right? What was the first thing you was exposed to when it came to business? So on this entrepreneur's journey now in Job Corps, I was selling everything. Like, they used to call me African E. African E, you got the snacks? I got you. African E, you got the blacks? Yeah, I was selling blacks. Like, it was so crazy on the center. Like, you can buy a pack of Black Miles, right? For maybe at that time, it was probably like $5, $4 or $5. I don't know what it is now. But you sell those things for like $1. right? And now you're making $8 off one pack, sometimes $10. And if it was drought days, like drought meaning there is no type of tobacco on the center, you selling them joints for like $2-3. People need their fix, they will buy it, right? Then I start selling Lucy's cigarettes, right? Started selling the cigarettes. I would go and buy a carton, and this was in like West Virginia, so we can go to, I think it was like Hingerstown, Maryland or something like that, and I would get it from like this wholesale cigarette outlet for the low. Come back, sell those Jones, man. The carton would sell shorts for $1, right? And then, or shorts was I think like $2 for $1, and then the hundreds or the longs, they were like $1, $2 or something like that. People were buying them, right? So every week I'm leaving the center, I'm buying my merchandise to make money. Then I started selling noodles, bro. We were getting so we got allowance, right? On the Job Corps Center, you get allowance every 2 weeks. I'm taking all of that and I'm flipping it. Boom. I'm going to Walmart. I'm buying snacks. I'm coming back. I'm flipping it. Those Swiss rolls, right? And oatmeal cream pies. Those were the joints. People love those oatmeal cream pies. So I was just always exposed at trying to make $1 out of something, right? Some of it wasn't the right way, right? It wasn't legal business, but I was making money. I had a nice customer base, and I realized like, I got to keep supplying these people, supply and demand. So this was just the entrepreneurship journey. So I graduated from Job Corps, and the second time around, I went back, right? So the first time I was sent there, the second time I went back, and this was only really to hustle. Like, honestly, the money was so good the first time I re-enrolled myself. Of course, I got the trades. The first time I graduated, I got the trade of brick masonry, right? So I got my apprenticeship in brick. So I did the thing. I did the school part of it. I didn't mess up on the school. I like using my hands. So I did brick masonry. So, and then I got my driver license and all of that within that center, all for free under the government's money, right? And so the second time around, I say, you know what? I'm coming back for cement. And I went back for cement masonry. So I was able to get a job working and building like big smokestacks and like fireplaces. Who was doing driveways and curbs. Who was actually going to all of the military bases, Fort Stewart, and building the sidewalks and the like curbs on those different centers. So I did the school thing. Now, I ain't gonna say I messed up on school, but I enrolled the second time just to proceed to go further in this entrepreneurship journey. So that's like the earlier memory I have of really like getting into entrepreneurship. Maybe it wasn't called that at that time, right? I just know, man, I'm hustling, right? So the same hustle that we applied back in the day, it's the same hustle now. It's just called entrepreneurship now. Instead of being the hustle man or the hustler, let me know, right? Is it the same thing? Is it the hustler, entrepreneurship? Is that the same thing? Because, yeah, I was African E, the snack guy. African E's got the stuff. Oh, man. Shout out to those days, man. But that was my journey of entrepreneurship, the beginning process of it. All right. So then fast forward, we left that season of life, right? Because everything is in seasons. So that season ended, and I came home for good, being a citizen now, a working citizen in society. I realized I was working at this time for McDonald's, but I needed more money. I just needed some extra cash, right? I just needed some extra cash to do some extra things. So I stopped that lifestyle of selling the stuff, and I started to work. But I remember, I can't think exactly what year it was, but I had a buddy that was getting married, right? My main man, may his soul rest in peace now, Limun Kwamini, he was getting married. And I brought up the idea to him to print some T-shirts, right? Because in the mix of my community, I don't know about your community, but I know about my African folks. When we're celebrating something, we want to wear the t-shirts, we want to put our face on there. There's a t-shirt for everything, you know? So I brought the idea to him like, yo, bro, you should do some t-shirts for the bridal party. And I can remember he's like, yeah, but who gonna do it? I don't got money for that. And I told him, I'm gonna do it. I had no idea what I was talking about, y'all, like zero. I just knew, yeah, I'm going to do these shirts. He had the nerve to say, yeah, bro, all right, bro, go ahead, you do the shirts. Again, I had no idea. Remember, I was working at McDonald's. I didn't know anything about how t-shirts was made, but I knew there was a place called T-shirt Shop, right? So I went down to the t-shirt shop. Actually, I wasn't working at McDonald's at this time because I remember the t-shirt shop that I went to was in Philly. That means I was working for the city of Philadelphia, the bike share, Indigo, right? So I went up on Germantown. It was like 5th in Germantown. And I asked the boy, I'm like, yo, bro, I got this idea of some shirts and it's for the wedding. Can you give me a pricing? And he started walking me through all these different things that needs to happen to get a shirt printed. Like he telling me, oh yeah, for the artwork, it's going to be $35 for the screen setup. And then we got to get the shirts. By the time he was done telling me everything, I was like, so how much it is to print the shirt? When he told me that, I was like, oh no, like that's expensive. My man didn't even give me money to do this, right? So I still had this task though. I still needed to print these shirts. I still needed to print the shirts. And I came home and I remember I'm on YouTube at this time, YouTube University. I'm watching all these different videos. Like, how can I print these shirts? Because I knew like I must have seen the video. Actually, I seen him with like a vinyl cutter in his shop. And he brought me down a little bit. He gave me some information on it. So I went ahead and started watching YouTube videos and I was exposed to this thing of printing t-shirts from home. And I said, oh, maybe this is how I can do it. But I had no equipment. I had nothing, right? So I left the idea and I went to church this Sunday. And whatever Sunday this was, I went to church and my cousin had came up to the front of the church and he was letting them people know that, yo, I can do shirts. If you guys need shirts, I can do shirts. That's another place that always do shirts for everything, right? So when he made that statement, I was like, oh, this must be God. He can do shirts and I need to do shirts. That afternoon, I was right in his neighborhood. Yo, cuz, I heard you can do shirts. And when I went into his house, this is just story time. Just giving you my journey now, right? I went into his house and he had at this time, you know what it was, but it was a heat press. It was a 15 by 15. I can say that now because I'm an expert in the game now. You feel me? So he had a 15 by 15 heat press and he had a vinyl cutter. It was a 28-inch vinyl cutter, MH721 vinyl cutter from US Cutter. I watched him do this and he was explaining this thing to me about vinyl. He had some vinyl on the bed. At this time, he had his bed on the floor, right? I'm being super descriptive because that's the only way I can tell the story. He had his mattress on the bed, on the floor, and he had the vinyl on there. But then he showed me a little bit how it's done, and I can look at it now. Knowing what I know about vinyl, my man didn't know what he was doing because it was all messed up, but he was learning, right? And he also had a printer. It was like an Epson printer, and it had some like the CCIS system on it where the ink is sitting outside, and then there's like tubes going inside to get everything with the bulk system. He had all of that in his spot. But I just came out, I told him that, oh, I got this order to do some shirts. I'm actually going to get the shirts. And he told me, he said, man, to get the shirts, just go online. And I remember Googling this thing, and I ordered shirts from maybe some random site. It was like shirts.com, some weird stuff. But I ordered the shirts and they came in. So I went back and I started watching more videos, right? And I was exposed to heat transfers, like screen printed heat transfers. The same talk I talked about with our sponsors from TKO, right? So shout out to TKO for sponsoring this video. If you're looking for heat transfers, TKO sales is the spot, right? Just use the code GarmentCreations and save 10% off, right? But I was exposed to that watching a company Transfer Express. Always will shout out Transfer Express because they were the one that actually got me started. Let me know, did you learn from the folks over there at Transfer Express? That's when Josh used to do the videos, right? Josh Ellsworth. They had some other folks on there, but I appreciate them, right? That's when I was exposed to the heat press, the heat transfers, screen printed transfers. And they had this thing, right? So this is how I completed the first order now. My very first order. The way I completed it was with the transfers from Transfers Express. So they have this platform that they call Easy View, right? And in order to get into the Easy View, I remember talking to the lady on the phone. She said, oh yeah, we got a designer. You don't know how to design. There's a designer you can use. And all you have to do is order something to get an account. I don't know if it's still like that these days, but I had to order the marketing kit. The marketing kit. And the marketing kit came in a box. It had some startup transfers. It also had like a 10% off coupon. I believe there was like a shirt in there this time. But I ordered this marketing kit and it came with all this stuff. And it had something in there that was called an idea book, right? So the idea book, I'll talk about that later, but the idea book had a bunch of designs that you can just look at and alter that design in the software. So that's how I created the first design. And the way they have it set up, you create the design, you order the transfers from them, the transfer come to you, and then you press it. So I ordered the transfers and it came. So I went over, when the shirts came, I went over to my cousin's house and I told him, bro, I got the stuff. Can you help me do this? And I was able to use his heat press to complete the very first job. And that was for a bridal party. And I believe there was like 24 shirts. And that's how we got into it, right? So I still didn't have an account. I still didn't have equipment, but that was the last time I used somebody else's equipment. Once I realized what I needed, I went ahead and I purchased my own heat press off of Amazon. It was a power press. It was a 16 by 24. I went big. I didn't realize it was a 16 by 24 until like 5 years later when I sold it. I always knew it was like 16 by 20. I didn't really, never measured it. So I sent it, somebody bought it for me years later. After we started creating content and getting sponsorship and people were sending us stuff, I decided to sell my first heat press. So I used that heat press now, my very first heat press. I used this heat press for 5 years. Like, I started the business in the house, in the closet space, right? That's when I bought this machine. And I also ended up buying the vinyl cutter from my cousin, that MH721 vinyl cutter that I talked about. I purchased this from him because he eventually didn't move on with the business. I think like the day I saw him, that was the last time he actually probably turned on his stuff. So eventually he sold me the stuff and I used that vinyl cutter to start my business as well. Like, I could show it. I'll throw a video here. I'm in the closet. I could barely even reach the walls, right? But that's how my entrepreneurship started in the custom apparel business, right from the closet space. And I used that heat press for 5 years. We moved from the house into a storefront. Eventually, that same heat press there, I'm creating content with it. And somebody wanted to upgrade their heat press, and I sold it to him after I got my first heat press sponsorship from a company, Heat Transfer Warehouse. So shout out to Heat Transfer Warehouse again for giving me my very first heat press that graduated me out of my Amazon press. It was an auto open press. It was, I don't even think they sell it anymore, but I was like, auto open? You mean this thing can open by itself? And it was opening by itself, man. So that's how we got into the custom apparel business as a entrepreneur. That was my personal story on how I started. And I would like to hear from you. How did you start? Are you planning to start? Right? If you're planning to start the t-shirt business, I do have a link down below that would take you through the masterclass, how to start a custom apparel business. That class is going to teach you everything from starting your business, equipment, marketing your business, doing artwork, getting customers. Everything is included in this one masterclass, like the 9 years of experience bunched up in this one class. So you're not on YouTube like I have been for years when I was starting off trying to find the right video and lead into nothing, right? So again, you want to start your t-shirt business, don't forget, hit the link down below and enroll into the Garment Creation Masterclass. So we're getting into more about like details on the custom apparel business, but I just wanted to introduce this first episode on how I got started, and so you can get a view or insight on how this conversation will go with our guests. There will be some solo ones, but I'm going to bring some people on. So if you know someone that is in the industry, or you know someone that is just an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter, right? And you will want them to be on the show, reach out to me. I will reach out to them. I'll do the introduction, and then we'll pray that they can come on, right? So if you're watching yourself, you're like, bro, I want to get on. I want to share my story. I want to inspire people. Please reach out to me on Instagram, GarmentCreations. Tell them, yo, bro, I want to get on the show, right? And we will make it happen. It doesn't have to be in person. We'll do it virtual, wherever you're at. All right, so the Entrepreneur Social Podcast, make sure you share this with somebody else. Let me know in the comments what type of topic would you like to hear? What type of conversations would you like to hear? And I'll see you on the next episode. All right, make sure you share this, subscribe if you're new, and I'm out of here. Bye.